to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of On My Way to Wealth. My name is Luis Rosa, and I'm your host. This is episode number 61. It is an episode that I'm doing in honor and recognition of Women's History Month. So to you ladies out there that are listening, I thank you. I celebrate you. I honor you for all of the hard work that you do that sometimes you may not even get recognized for. So for whatever it means, coming from me, even if you don't know me, thank you. One of the reasons I wanted to do this episode is because I wanted to point out the major impact that finances have in women's lives, and also the disparity that exists in women's finances in general. You know, I'm sure you hear it very often where there's a huge pay gap situation worldwide. I know here in the United States, depending on the study that you read, you see that women make anywhere between 75 to 85 cents on the dollar that men make in average. And that varies by industry. There's also big emphasis on women that are Black or LatinX as well. That gets even worse. I mean, I've seen studies that say that the pay rate of a Black woman or a Latinx woman compared to a man is like 57 cents on the dollar. So it's even worse if you're a person of color. So that in and of itself already is putting women at a disadvantage, just the pay gap in itself, right? Because when you're making less money, you save less money, you're more likely to have more debt, you're saving less for retirement, and that just has a compounding impact in your life. Now, one thing that I often, never realize too is like women spend more time out of the workforce for various reasons. And one of the major ones is childbirth, right? So, it's something that sometimes it's something that's simple to like put together, but you don't necessarily realize the long-term impact of things. So when you think about it this way, women spend more time out of the workforce as a result of caretaking. Sometimes that's children of their own, and sometimes that's taking care of parents, for example. Now that has a huge impact. And the more immediate way is women making less money. So think about it this way. You're already making less than men for the most part. Then on top of that, you have to spend less time working, right? More time out of the workforce in order to take care of children and so on. And that also has an even further effect. The immediate effect is making less money. But then on top of that, because you're making less money, you're contributing less to your retirement accounts, say 401k, for example. You are less likely to get continuous raises because now you're spending time out of the workforce. Maybe when you go back, you have to either, take a pay cut or just take the same salary you had before and so on. It's not like you were progressing throughout the years. Another thing too, that's a long-term impact. You're also contributing less to your Social Security because you're also out of the workforce much longer, right? So all these things combined really have a pretty negative effect long-term. And to add insult to injury, this is a good thing in one way. Women tend to live longer as well. So think about then the effect of making less money to begin with, being out of the workforce longer, saving less for retirement, investing less as well. And then on top of that, living longer, the effect that's going to have on women over time. We're talking having more living expenses, having more healthcare expenses because you're living longer. And as a result, you might incur more health issues over time. That also increases your debt over time because you have less money, more longevity, and more issues. And then a lot of women, I know a lot of them too, that are stuck in between, like the sandwich generation, where you're taking care of your children and then also elderly parents, and that's yet another burden that you're being tasked with, so it's pretty big, pretty significant. So I just wanted to take some time to point those things out, talk about the effect that they have on women. Thank you all for doing such amazing work. Even if you're not recognized for it, I hope that at least this episode here, me just telling you thank you because you are amazing, I want to also point out that there are ways for you to put the focus back where it needs to be, because you're starting at a disadvantage. It doesn't mean that you don't have a chance, but it does mean that you have to be more diligent about paying mind to your finances. So some of the takeaways that I want you to have are for you to start taking care of yourself. You know, I did an episode a little bit back about saying no, and I think a lot of women are just givers in nature, and sometimes they find themselves just spread out like way too thin. Right now, before I get into some of the things that you can do, I also wanted to point out that the pandemic, COVID-19, has had a disproportionate impact in women, specifically women of color. And this is yet another issue that we're seeing a lot. Most of the jobs that were lost were in industries that are predominantly occupied by women. Personal care, the food service occupation, certain healthcare places as well that have been impacted. So that's a major problem. Women having to go on unemployment more often. Another huge part of that has been the childcare system in the United States has been severely impacted by COVID-19, as you all know. And a lot of the times, most of the time, women are the ones to have to deal with those issues. I know women who have had to stop working because of such issues, or they're working from home, but at the same time, you have a job, but you also have to take care of your own kids. It's really hard. I cannot even imagine. I don't even know how you do it. So again, thank you. So all that being said, I just wanted to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Your health, super important. You want to be able to give from a position of strength. So you want to take care of yourself. You want to take some time out for yourself. Try to leverage your relationships, whether it's a spouse, family, friends, whoever you can use to give yourself that needed break, because you need it. You need to recharge the batteries in order to feel better, feel stronger, feel confident, and continue to take care of yourself and your family. Also, we have to take care of your finances. Sometimes I feel like you're spread out so thin between taking care of your family, children, husbands, etc., that the last thing on your mind is the future in terms of like saving for retirement. I was reading when I was putting together this episode, a lot of the articles that I read were talking about how women are less likely to invest. So even when they're doing well and they have extra income at the end of the month, a lot of women save that income, which is great. It's a great start. But apparently, a lot of women are not comfortable investing their money, and that could be rooted in a lot of different things, right? It could even be a matter of self-confidence, but basically you need to start investing as well. So, typically when it comes to emergency savings, you always hear, like I always recommend that my clients have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Now with the pandemic, if you can even do more so that if something like this ever were to happen again, hopefully never, then you're in a better position. But whenever you have that amount that you're comfortable with, it's 3 months, 6 months to a year worth of expenses, not salary, just expenses, because if you think about it, if you lost your job, what is the bare minimum that you need to operate, right? Pay your living expenses and survive, right? So make it through whatever that time period is, So whenever you have those 3, 6, 9 months, year expenses, whichever you're comfortable with, and you make that a goal, once you reach that goal, the excess money that you have, then you want to make sure that you're investing for your future. Because if you're not, very likely the money that's in your savings account is not going to keep up with the cost of things over time. You get very little interest in the bank compared to how prices and things go up. So you want to make sure that you start investing. If you're not confident, that's understandable, but be sure to work with a professional. Contact a certified financial planner. I'll put a link in the show notes where you can search for financial planners, whether it's in your area or working virtually, but that's something you definitely want to do. A lot of the things that you should also work on start from budgeting, and I always joke that nobody likes the B word, right? Nobody likes to budget because it sounds restrictive, but don't think of your budget as something that is restrictive. Just think of it as you deciding where to allocate every single dollar that comes in, so you are in control and you're saying, okay, I am going to save X amount of money per month or per paycheck. I'm going to invest X amount, whether that's your 401k, you open up your own retirement account on your own, whether you're saving for a home, your children's education, you are in control. You control that budget, right? You tell that money where it's going to go. And then you make the decisions based on how you want the outcomes to be. So you want to have your budget in check. You want to have your emergency savings. And then you want to have your goals. And this is where a financial plan comes into play. Plans change, circumstances change, but you don't also want to just put money away for the sake of putting money away. You ideally would like to have some sort of outcome that you're working towards, because you're more likely to stick to it. You're more likely to be motivated by it as well, especially when the things get rough. You say, you know what, this is what I'm doing this for. And then you push through, so be sure to take those things into consideration. The fact that, yes, you do have some disadvantages compared to men, especially if you're a woman of color. But it does not mean that has to stay that way. It just takes a little bit of education. So definitely read up on personal finance books. That's one. So even if you cannot afford to work with a certified financial planner, for example, read some books, read some blogs out there. There's plenty of good information out there where you can find some great information to get started on learning how to budget, how to invest, how to set your goals. If you could afford to, you definitely want to work with a certified financial planner professional. And also just take care of yourself, give yourself the credit for everything that you're doing. And sometimes it is quite all right to be selfish. And, I know sometimes people look at that like, what are you talking about? You have to put yourself first in certain situations, because if you wait until you give it all and then there might not be any left for you, right? So just take that into account. You're strong. You have the abilities to achieve your goals. Just put your mind to it and be consistent. And just be aware that these disadvantages exist, but they do not have to be what defines you. So again, thank you. I hope that you got something out of this episode. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, please send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. The information provided here is for information and education purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of myself, unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by my firm or myself about other parties' information or accuracy or completeness. All information or ideas provided should be discussed in detail with a financial advisor, accountant, or legal counsel prior to implementation. Thank you.